I wanted to speak to you for a second tonight about something, honestly, that most of the time would not find its way onto this show. But I want to talk to you about Jalen Hurts. So the Jalen Hurts story, college or pro, do you think you could tell that story? I think most of you could tell most of the story. I think most Bama fans or Oklahoma fans or Philadelphia Eagle fans think, oh, I could tell the whole story. Could you tell the whole story? I think you could tell most of it. But there are some really important chapters that, as I've listened to a lot of people flesh out this story of Jalen Hurts over the last few days after he's won the Super Bowl, there's a lot of stuff getting left out. It's really important context, and I hope we don't overlook this. So I'm telling you, this lower third here, what Colin's putting on the screen, I have come to realize Jalen Hurts is my favorite football player of all time. He's active. He's still playing right now. I do not really care. Short of, a massive scandal that erupts in the back half of his career, Jalen Hurts will go down as my favorite player of all time. So I'm going to give you a few reasons why. And as we talk about this, I want you to think to yourself, like, what is the Hurts story? So here's what I remember. I remember that he wasn't supposed to start for Alabama in 2016. It was Blake Barnett. Blake Barnett was a five-star guy from Southern California, and you go through spring practice, and it's Barnett's job to lose. And then you go through fall camp, and it's Barnett with the ones, Jalen's running with the twos, and that's pretty much the way it's going to play out this year. And then I think they opened against Southern Cal, and Blake Barnett is total deer in headlights, and Jalen Hurts comes in. I think he fumbled his first snap, by the way. So it's not like he was dominant from bell one, but he definitively proved he was the better quarterback that afternoon, and he took the job and never looked back rest of the season. And then we move on to the next season, and he's a second-year starter. He's a returning starter. There's this kid from Hawaii. No one can pronounce his last name, Taga something, and it ends up being Tua Tagovailoa. And so then what you start hearing is more and more throughout the 2017 season, Bama's good, but it feels like there's a little bit being left on the table because of inefficiency at the quarterback position. And there's this backup they've got that's just slinging the coconut in practice. And everyone thinks that we probably are playing our second-best quarterback. Well, come halftime of the national championship game, you put that theory to the test, proves to be accurate. Tua comes in, come from behind, 2nd and 26, Devontae Smith, touchdown. Okay, everyone remembers that part of the story. Everyone remembers national championship win, but Jalen got benched, but he's still there celebrating on the field, like just model citizen, great teammate. Do you remember what happened next? Most people would tell you what happened next is either he transferred to Oklahoma, or the ones who remember the story a little better, you would say, no, he eventually transferred to Oklahoma, but remember the 2018 SEC title game, and you're also right about that. Do you remember what happened before that, several months before that? Do you remember what happened after the 2017 national title game? Because what happened is everyone celebrated, who was an Alabama fan, and then you started to look toward spring practice. So Tua's the starter at Alabama now. Jalen will transfer, and he didn't. And everyone looked around and said, well, that's weird. This was pre-transfer portal era, but still, in such a clean-cut, obvious case where the hierarchy was determined, it was expected even back then being like 7 years ago, it was expected that a guy like that was going to transfer. The coaching staff at Alabama expected him to transfer. He didn't. He rides it out through spring, does not transfer. And then they enter fall camp. Jalen Hurts has not said a word in the media all spring. They kept him away from the media all spring. And they have this thing called Fan Day. They have an open practice at Bama, or they did, every fall during camp. And they let all the players talk to the media. It's like the only time of year that they would do that. So it's a Saturday afternoon, it's early August, and for the first time, the media talks to Jalen Hurts. It's on YouTube. You can go find it. I think it's so critical to telling the story of Jalen Hurts effectively because he stands there with this gaggle of reporters around him and talks freely for like 30 minutes. And he's so calm, he never raises his voice, but he basically says, yeah, they've kept me away from the media all spring. Everyone just assumed I'd transfer. One of his quotes was, a lot of people have made decisions for me. No one's bothered to ask me what I thought about it. Coaching staff didn't bother to come to me and ask me what I thought about it. No one's really cared how I feel about this. Now, it sounds like when I give you these paraphrased quotes that he was complaining. He wasn't. He wasn't whining at all. Like, he was manning up about it. But he was being really raw, and it was almost like you were watching an NFL team. Bama, in many ways, operated like that. Because you don't normally hear college football players talk like that, and you normally don't hear the ones who would talk like that given the opportunity to talk like that, but he did. And so he goes on to just definitively tell you, I'm not crazy about the situation. I want to be the starter here. I'm not happy that I'm not, but I respect the decision. But I've sat here and listened all spring to people talk about me transferring as a formality. I'm not leaving. Coaches never came to me. Nick Saban at one point almost indicated that he was surprised that I was still here. Well, I'm here, and I'm going to be here. Okay, so then the season plays out. Bama's offense is incredible. Tua's got injury concerns, but largely the offense is incredible. Tua goes down halftime of the SEC championship game. Jalen Hurts comes off the bench. It's my favorite Bama game of the Saban era. And he leads Alabama from behind to beat the team that he got benched against in the same building it had happened in a year prior. I've never seen Nick Saban more emotional than that. I've never felt more emotion like being on the sideline watching one of these games, because you really understood like you were watching a documentary happen in real life. I can't write that stuff. Unbelievable. And then afterwards, there's the post-game scene on the field. Saban kind of choked up and cried on the air. I saw what he looked like when he went up the tunnel. It was a lot more emotional than that once he thought he was out of sight of the cameras. But then he transfers to Oklahoma, and you remember large chunks of the story after that. But there's one more thing. During that season, during that time from him getting benched to him sticking it out at Alabama to him eventually winning the SEC championship at Alabama, you know what the talk around the program was? The talk around the program for many was, you need to redshirt. Once you've played your 4 games, if you play any more than that, you burn your redshirt year, and then you'd only have 1 year left of eligibility. And why were people talking like that? Because most people did not expect Jalen Hurts to be an NFL quarterback. I didn't. I guarantee most of you didn't. I looked at Jalen Hurts, and when I heard that redshirt talk, it was quiet, but like there was an undercurrent of maybe he's going to redshirt. I thought to myself, for the team's sake, I hope he doesn't, but for his own sake, I think I would do that if I were him. Because Jalen Hurts was a guy who I thought to be the quintessential good college football player. We've all seen those guys. We see them every year. Guys who are really good in college, probably not going to amount to much at the next level. There's probably some kind of limitation physically on them. And I thought that was Jalen Hurts. So I thought if he redshirts, that's good because he preserves as much college eligibility as he can, and he's going to need it. He burned the red shirt. And then he won the SEC championship. And then he goes to Oklahoma. And then he goes to Philadelphia. And it hasn't been a joyride every step of the way there either, but we are less than a week removed now from that guy winning a Super Bowl and winning Super Bowl MVP in the process. I don't know that you'll ever see a better story than that in football. I don't know that you'll ever see a better model citizen be in that role and then watch the role get played and the story play out the way it has, and it's still being written, by the way. But even if it ended today, it's one of the great stories in the history of the American sports landscape, and I think Jalen Hurts now is my favorite football player of all time. I'm so glad that I got to witness that, because most of the great stories I have to listen to the older guys tell me because I wasn't around for them. But this one I was around for. So I get to tell the youth one day, there was this guy from Channelview, Texas, and his name was Jalen Hurts, and Lou Holtz had a tough time pronouncing it, but man, everyone, including Lou Holtz, myself, and everyone else included, we love watching him. Unbelievable story.